Last fall of 2023, I was teaching a architectural design studio class, and I decided to explore a little bit this intersection of architecture and game design, specifically the esports arena. After designing the class and giving that class, I ended up being able to showcase that on DreamHack Atlanta and the eSports Summit here in Georgia. And that was very, very exciting. Like, the feedback and just the reaction to the projects at an academic level, but also at a professional level, was very, very positive. I thought that I would just capture all my thoughts into a video series to give those of you that don't really know about esports or arenas a window into what happens at this intersection, but also for those that are in the industry or that are architects or that are designers, give you a window into the exploration of this intersection. I am not going to be prescribing anything. I am going to be exploring. I am going to be just walking through and stating the scene that, the design situation that we're in. And I'm definitely going to be exploring ideas for solution, but something that I want to make clear is that we don't know what we're doing. I mean, and by we, I don't mean just me. It's like in general, everyone that is trying to figure out this new esports arena thing, we don't know what we're doing. And that's totally fine. It's okay to not know. And in fact, it's a sign that it's an opportunity to discover. We are facing something new, and that is exciting. This first video is all about the introduction into esports. It's not really a deep dive into the esports arena itself, but it is setting the foundations. Like, it's introducing basic terms. It's just introducing to anyone who doesn't know what this esports thing or why it's so exciting to millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. Just give you a window into what is esports and why it matters, why you should care. Let's start with the definition of esports. The definition, according to Wikipedia, is esports, short for electronic sports, is a form of competition using video games. Esports often takes the form of organized, multiplayer video game competitions, particularly between professional players played individually or as a team. What is played in esports? Because not every video game is suited for a competitive or esports scene. I'm going to be just showcasing 4 different genres of video games that are played. So we have the multiplayer online battle arenas, also known as MOBAs, and we have some examples like League of Legends, Dota 2, and Smite. We have first-person shooters or FPS. We have Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Siege. We have fighting games like Dragon Ball FighterZ, Street Fighter 6, and Mortal Kombat. Real-time strategy games, RTS, like StarCraft and Age of Empire. It's really important to understand and have at least a basic of an understanding that esports is not just about one game. It's a range of games. It's a plethora of games. And it's really almost, I wouldn't say ever-changing, but it's definitely a shifting ground of players that are coming in and out in the sense of games that are being played in the esports or are the focus of that esports scene. Now, this is important because depending on the game, the team size changes. It could be a 1 versus 1, a 2 versus 2, a 5 versus 5 scenario. Also changes the amount of information that you need for the spectator to have readily available for them to understand and follow what's happening in the game. And those 2 things are going to be very, very important when we get deeper into this video series. And of course, I'll bring it back up, but I just wanted to make sure that you understand why it's important that we understand different games are played in the esports scene. The next question is, how is it played? Esports is mostly played on computers, and this is because the computer itself is a easily modifiable, easy to update. You can have multiple games on it. So from a space planning or event planning perspective, you really only need to keep track of one type of equipment and all of the games can be played there versus a console. Consoles are not used in the esports scene. And that's because you kind of like need a console like a PS5, an Xbox, a Nintendo Switch per game versus a computer, which is again one machine, one item that can hold various games. So that's one limitation. VR headsets are making their way into the esports scene. albeit into a little bit more of a experimental kind of like eye candy or tech candy or whatever type of candy into the scene just because of its innovation. Now, this is opening up a very interesting intersection of video games and kind of like the physical realm of video games, right? Because at this point, a lot of these esports spectating is just someone playing behind a big computer and a big desk. And we'll also touch on that on further videos. But with the VR headset, now you have your body is now part of the game. So it's bringing it closer to kind of like this futuristic type of video game, right? It's like Player One or whatnot. That's very interesting. And like the VR headsets are kind of like growing in their gear and their capabilities and flexibility. So it's very, very interesting. Tablets and phones are being used for esports tournaments. Now, of course, this is kind of being pushed more by the companies of these equipments rather than coming from bottoms up as from the consumers, just like computers, right? But still very interesting. It's another way to play, which is, options are always good. Next question is, why do people play esports? I have identified 6 different categories of reasons why people play. Of course, games. Games are the fundamental reason why people play esports. Then we have competition, hence electronic sports, the competitive aspects that sets apart esports aside from just casual gaming. So you have gaming, you have competition, then you have emotions, right? That fiero that you get from being in a social moment when a player does an awesome move, when something extraordinary or very cool happens in a game, you're able to share that with everybody else. That's something that doesn't happen if you're not physically in the same space. Then you have participation. And this is something really, really unique to the esports space. Other spectator sports, they come to that physical space to actually sit down and passively see what is happening, right? Like a basketball game, a football game, everybody is passively consuming what is happening. In esports, we do want to go and watch the game, but we also want to play games. Now, we're not going to be playing in that same tournament because that tournament took a lot of work to get into, but we still want to interact and we want to play some games while we're there. Then you have innovation on tech. People want to go to these events to just see what is happening with the tech, what is coming up, what is interesting. And then the final one is community. The social celebration of this whole gaming and esports scene is very important to this space. Now, up to this point, you kind of understand, or I've been giving you, if you're not a gamer yourself, if you're not an esports participant yourself, why this thing might make sense or might be interesting to millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. But there is also another very important angle, which is why other people that are not necessarily from these generations that don't understand gaming, that don't game themselves, do need to still care about this. And this is kind of like why you should care about the esports side. It is the economic aspect. Esports right now has a growing demographic. Millennials, you have Gen Z, and now you have Gen Alpha entering the scene. So these are the very, very young kids, like think 10 years and younger. Right now, I'm going to be showing you a graphic on the screen that showcases the expected numbers in millions that's going to enter the esports scene. So by right now, 2022s or 2024s, it is estimated that around 532 million people are part of the esports audience. By 2025, 2026, it is estimated to grow up to 640 million. That is a really big chunk of the human population. So this is no small thing. Esports is no small thing. It is a phenomena that is coming from gaming that is here to stay. With a growing demographic comes a growing market share. And this is also very important. Again, I'm going to be showing you a graphic on the screen. And this time around, it just showcases the projected revenue that this might be generating. In 2025, where we are right now, the industry is generating almost $2.9 billion. By 2030, it is estimated to jump to almost 7.5 billion. By 2032, 10.9 billion. That is a lot of money. It's not going unnoticed. I'm going to be showing you here a couple of article headlines that showcase how this scene, the esports community, the esports scene is getting traction and attention. So you have Glitch, who wants to build 32 esports arena in United States. You also have Nerd Street, who wants to do something similar but around the world by building 100 plus esports venues. And then you have Gillette, a non-esports brand who is bullish on gaming. And these are just some of samples because we have, from a marketing perspective, which it really is what drives the market share after like game sales and paraphernalia of games and equipment and gear and all that, it's eyeballs. It's just attention like everything else. A lot of brands are picking up on this, right? You have brands like Mercedes, you have brands like Ferrari, you have the Air Force, the Army, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Subway, Monster, H&M, Gillette, Ally, and Coca-Cola. And these are just a select few examples that kind of showcase the range of brands that are interested in the scene, that are looking at the scene as a legitimate market share. And if this is not enough to kind of paint you the picture that this scene is developing and it is getting friction and it is moving forward, we have the eSports Olympics as part of the official Olympics brand. It's not part of the same event, it's a different event, but it is an event nonetheless. The last question that I want to touch on, where all of this is played, because we have touched on the what it is, why people play it, how they play it, and even why you should care. But the where, right, the space, that is where the intersection with architecture happens. I'm not going to go too much into it because that's kind of like all the other videos on the series are really going to break down, dive deep into different aspects, but I do want to give you kind of a glimpse. At the moment, these places where we play esports, where these events and these social gatherings happen, they're not very good. Now, and this usually happens because we're kind of like retrofitting or remodeling spaces. We're also using spaces that were not designed for them, like convention centers. Don't get me wrong, there are some companies out there really trying to push the boundaries. They're doing some really exciting things, some really, really eye-catching things. But a lot of it is staying on paper. There's some reasons for that, and we'll dive deeper into those in the next videos. I just wanted to let you guys, give a sneak peek into like what is happening, like what is actually being used right now versus what is trying to be designed for it to be used. And I'm going to leave it there for this video. As mentioned, this is the first video of a video series that I'm doing on esports and architecture design. So esports arena. Next video, I'm going to be breaking down or going through like the anatomy of the level of esports spaces that exist, from very, very small community-based casual spaces, kind of like your modern arcades, all the way to the mega esports / hotel / convention center complexes that are being thought out. And I'm going to give examples of the whole range of different types and different levels. I'm going to break them down. Then the next video is going to be diving into what is the problem? Why is these spaces not working, or why can't we kind of like figure out this esports space? Because there is a growing market share, but there is a fundamental problem that I have identified. And then kind of like the last video, and hopefully like the next videos that I keep adding to it, is how to innovate. So I've also gathered or identified specific spaces, design points that we could exploit in a particular manner, or that we don't get the opportunity to design for if it's not for this particular gaming and architecture intersection. So we're just gonna start exploring all of those things. I am not going to be prescribing. I am not at the moment that I can prescribe what is to be done. I'm exploring. and I'm putting out ideas. And then my intention with this video series is, I will try to at some point design some actual concepts, make, it's like proof of the concept, but it's also to put out ideas to start a conversation, not just a conversation with architects, not just a conversation with game designers. It's also a conversation with event planners, conversation with broadcasters from the esports scene, conversation with everybody involved in this scene. If you like this video, please remember to like the video. It really does help with the algorithm. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my other videos, especially with this one being a series. But with that said, thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.